people. You all got up so early. That's not something I can say for myself a lot. Anyway, I am so happy to be here, and it's also really exciting because I know this is the first time of gathering after a few really kind of crazy years. A lot of pivoting, a lot of, I said the word, everyone was saying that word way too much, but a lot of adjusting, a lot of soul searching, figuring things out, and I certainly did a lot of that myself. So I'm really excited that we can all talk today, and I'm excited to dig into some treasure. So, kind of speaking of that process that we were in these last few years, I think that really ties in. I know that, our world has been rapidly changing. We've got a lot of voices going on. We've got a lot of platforms. In that changing world, what is our creative currency? What sets our voices apart? What makes it unique? Probably a lot of the questions that we've been asking over these last few years, those questions and how to apply that best. I think the answers to those questions, that's what treasure is. At least that's how I'm going to refer to it today. So, let me tell you a little bit about my own process in finding that out these last, more than a few years. We're going to start at the beginning. All right, I just figured this one. That was what I just talked about. And one major thing, just keep your eyes peeled for this, or your ears, I guess, throughout my little story, is that oftentimes the most valuable things in that journey are the things that we don't maybe notice right away. They're not shiny. So, here's my background. This may not look all that normal to many of you, but to me, I thought this was normal because of my parents, so that bald kid is me. I didn't grow hair until about 3rd grade. But anyway, I grew up here in Minnesota. I had very wonderful, loving parents, stable home. When I got a little bit older, I actually started to feel self-conscious about that. I thought my background was really, my context was really normal. It was not very, I didn't experience a lot of adversity in that part of my life. And, as a creatively inclined person, that felt like that was wrong. But I am grateful for it, and that was what I got. So anyway, I was always interested in a lot of different things. My parents were really supportive of my interests too. I loved art, I loved music. I could get lost in the backyard for hours on end, just exploring. I loved any kind of creative problem-solving ideas. And I liked school. I liked learning. I did well in the traditional school structure, even in math. And I lost that somewhere along the way, but I liked it once. And so I had no idea for the longest time what I would do with all those different interests. I didn't have any particular inclination to cook when I was growing up. Although my mom did tell me that I gave her some recipes every now and then when I didn't like what she was making that week. Here's one for a recipe for salad in 1990. I was 4 years old at the time. I still like parsley and carrots. I think that's what I was trying to make. But anyway, I don't remember much more than that. I loved going out to visit my grandparents in their little farming community in Dassel, Minnesota. It's west on Highway 12, about an hour west of the cities. And it was just magical out there. I loved spending time with my grandpa, especially in his garden. You can't see it in that picture, but I'm also wearing some of my grandmother's jewelry. Get in the dark and make it fancy. It's the story of my life. So I love spending time out there. A lot of farmers, it's kind of a Scandinavian immigrant farm town. And here are all my relatives standing in the lake like cows. That's what we would do at family picnics, and it was hot. It was great. And you notice the farmer stands? I find myself doing that a lot too, actually. But I loved it. I loved the rhythm of life out there. I loved the land. I loved kind of all the unspoken things. People would talk about the weather, but it actually meant something because it affected everyone's lives. I just liked the pace of all of that, and I loved experiencing that world. And I also noticed whenever we would gather, there was food. Even all these stoic Swedes, would really warm up when there was food set out on the table. And my grandma was especially good at bringing people together that way. And her specialty was pie. So in the summer, for a little bit, it was peach, and then the rest of the year it was apple. She had lots of opinions on how to do it, and I started to hear about those from an early age. But that really was her love language. So when I was just barely old enough to reach the counter, she started letting me play with pie scraps, making my own little concoctions. And then, eventually, she showed me the ways. I asked her how to make the whole thing, and she did. But as I got older, I didn't keep making pies. I was buried in my other interests, developing in other ways, and getting busy in school, and I just was really busy figuring out what I should do with my life, something really important. And I thought, especially since I did well in school, I thought, I should do something really brainy, really that feels significant. And I realize now that I thought I should do something that other people thought was significant. And those categories are always changing, but I didn't really know that at the time.
Wait a second here.
Oh, I skipped the whole part about going to college and all that. Anyway, that happened. I went to college, that's where I met Drew at some point. But so I had all these interests, and basically, I went to a liberal art school, and naturally, if I wanted to do something really, really important, I became a history major. For good measure, I had a business minor, make it practical, and an art minor, keep it fun. I graduated on a fast track in 3 years and joined a nonprofit. I really didn't know anymore what I wanted to do long term. That seemed like the right thing in the moment. I was interested initially in things varying from international diplomacy to law to film. And realized at that point in my life, really I didn't know myself very well. So I worked for this nonprofit for a little bit, and while I was doing that, I started gardening. And I found myself more and more spending time in the garden. I found myself working on creative projects, even at the expense of sleep. I tried to incorporate that into my job as much as possible. And I really loved, when I started gardening, I had all this stuff to work with. And I started cooking for people with it. And the dots started connecting. I think I started to realize, oh wait, this is the magical thing that I saw happening all these years in Dassel too, people connecting over food. And I thought, I'm trying to have an impact on society in all these other ways, but a lot of this happens over the table. So I started to take it seriously. And I started, as one did at the time, a cooking blog. Yes, that's me. You can probably find it somewhere on the interweb still, but I was really embarrassed about it for a long time, but whatever. So I did that, and I fell more and more in love with it. Decided, okay, I need to do something different with my life. Brainstormed for a while, and realized, I should take cooking seriously. But I didn't have any experience outside of what my grandma taught me and countertop lessons from my mom when she was cooking when I was a kid. And so I thought, well, I should probably go learn from the best. So off I trotted, just like Sabrina, to France. And I learned that Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, took as much as I could afford there, and really went for it. But at that point, I really didn't want to become a chef. I told all my instructors, I said, no, I don't want to be a chef. That world is too crazy. Maybe I'll, be an instructor, a TV personality, something like that. It's like all the hard work. But I can't believe that they didn't just laugh in my face at that point, but they were very gracious. And I came back, not to find a line of Larry, but I did come back. That was a Sabrina reference for those of you who were wondering. But I found kind of an unusual landscape, a lot of opportunities in the food world, different than they are today, especially for women. And I just wasn't sure how to navigate that all. But if I really did at some point want a little restaurant experience, I thought I should try it out. I did, and I kind of fell in love. So I kept working in restaurants, worked a bunch of different positions, both back of house and front of house. and eventually was offered a position as a pastry chef at an up-and-coming restaurant in Minneapolis. So I kind of found a niche there, did that for a little while, even though I was never interested in pastries particularly, and started making things like this. It's not a cloud of earth, that is lychee ice cream on top of probably some kind of chocolate sponge sprayed with matcha and some kind of pearls and who knows what else. It was very 2000 teens. And I was thinking these things, but just realized, you know, I couldn't really make a go of this pastry chef life, but I also could, you know, I kind of feel like there's more. Wasn't sure what to do, so I decided I'll just, you know, clear my head a little bit. I decided to go visit a friend in Sweden who was studying there, and you know, being outside my context always helps. So off to Sweden I went, and I heard about this restaurant in northern Sweden with a chef who was on chef's table, Karyn Tomlinson, and I thought, well, I should just see if I can get a reservation there. And sure enough, they got me in, and I put me at a communal table, and when everyone was out on a smoke break after the amazing dinner, I was feeling really awkward by myself at this giant table. Karyn Tomlinson came out, introduced himself, and chatted with me for a little bit. He'd actually just been in Minnesota. Asked me about what I was doing and where I was at. I kind of told him where I was at in my career. I had no designs for it. Oh, and by the way, he thanked me for bringing a pie. I mean, what else do you bring one of the best chefs in the world? So, the whole story about making this, by the way, is worthwhile. That could be an after-talk conversation, but it was quite an adventure. But he thanked me for the pie, and as we were chatting, he said, you know, you could learn here, you could cook here for the winter for free. And I said, you know, I think I'll do that. So I'm not sure if it was a pie or a Minnesota connection or what, but I took the offer and off to Papa and I went. So after a really pivotal experience there, intense, but so worth it, I came back and ended up in a head chef position at Quarter Table in South Minneapolis. So that's where I really learned, had my kind of first taste of running a whole kitchen, you know, developing a seasonally driven menu, learning whole animal butchery with bigger animals than I had ever worked with. And so that was super valuable. And then it was early on, I was invited to do this competition, National Whole Hog Butchery Competition that works with really bull farms. And when I was deciding what menu to do for this, the chef, or the restaurant owner, Thomas Famer, just said, you know, I really love when you do things that kind of echo your heritage. And I was like, what heritage? And I mean, I thought whatever I had was just neutral. But I realized that that was the first time that someone kind of acknowledged that my, you know, what I grew up around, some of the Scandinavian immigrant farmer food, actually could resonate with more people than just me. And I thought, you know, that's something that really has meant something to me. And usually people can relate to authenticity. So if it meant something to me and I shared it in a meaningful way, someone's going to connect. So that's what I did. I leaned into those Swedish meatballs, my great-grandmother's dinner roll recipe. She called them her special ones. And of course, I made my grandma's apple pie with lard crust. She even taste tested it for me. I made about 60 of them, by the way. My shoulder probably still hasn't recovered. But long story short, we ended up winning, and I was crowned the Queen of Pork, the first woman. I've never dreamed about being the pork queen when I was a little girl. Anyway, it was amazing for my team. And in the family, I was offered a lot of opportunities after that. You know, a lot of doors opened. And the restaurant owners also invited me into ownership and invited me to develop a business plan for Quarter Tables, kind of rebrand it. So I was working on a business plan for that for the whole year after. But then things suddenly changed. So it was very heartbreaking. They decided to actually close the restaurant because of the turn events. And so no more restaurant concept. and my grandmother died, high-making grandma. And she was just important in my life, and it was hard. A lot of times, a lot of stuff happens at once, and that was one of those times in my life. But what's interesting is a lot of times that also opens up space for really important developments that we might not have seen otherwise. So when I was kind of flailing, not sure what to do, I thought, I should really do a dinner out in my grandma's town to honor her and stay connected with the community out there as my relatives were getting older. And so I did a dinner in the biggest public space there, the Covenant Church. And I'll source some food from the area, but it's probably all imported soybeans. And as I started poking around, I just saw all these farmers doing really cool things, like small-scale farmers, kind of swimming upstream, bringing back old farming methods, and just really some incredible people. So I was able to source quite a lot, and they're my friends still today. But I didn't know at that point that would be the beginning of something important. I also was reached out to by KitchenAid, and they ended up inviting me to be a part of a documentary they're doing on women in cooking. It's called Women's Place. And what was interesting, so they featured me and two other women. It's a 30-minute watch. It's still on Hulu, I believe, and maybe YouTube. But what was interesting, I almost felt apologetic in our preparations for this. I almost felt apologetic for my Midwestern background and all of that. But they actually embraced it, and in a really respectful way. They weren't making fun of the Midwestern hick. And it helped me, actually. They chose to film it out in Dassel and film it at my great Aunt Shirley's house. And that even helped me realize, again, kind of like the show video, that other people could relate. So, as soon as I was starting to get momentum again, and they also documented my journey towards opening a restaurant. At that point, I decided I was just going to do it anyway and had to figure out how. But then COVID happened, and as it did for all of us, completely changed everything I had in the works. And it made me ask a lot of questions. I was wondering, why am I really going for the things why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I trying to open a restaurant? What do people actually need right now? What's going to be possible? And why am I particularly suited to do this? These are just a couple pictures. I did a lot of cooking videos because I didn't know what else to do. We all thought we were in Harrell every time we went to the grocery store and work. So I thought, let's all cook from our pantries. That's at least something the way that I can help people. So I stayed busy doing that, and then in the meantime, looked for a restaurant space. And here again was another point in life where I was going through something incredibly hard. For those of you who can't see in the back, it says, sometimes existential crisis can be treasure in disguise. When we're feeling a loss of identity, it can be a time to synthesize what we've learned and build conviction that will serve us later. And that 100% was true for me in the COVID time. I had to ask questions and answer questions that later helped me. I had a foundling with a baby restaurant and had hit my first bumps in the road with that. So going back to the answers to those questions is so important. So there's Muriel, that came out of the pandemic. Thank you. And I met my business partner. We both, Muriel is the name of one of my favorite characters from the book, Ms. Rob, a beacon of hospitality. And so we began this, but we had to be kind of scrappy. We were starting on the heels of the pandemic and didn't have a lot of money, but we looked to other resources, and that continues to inform the way that we prioritize our values into our business now. So, and we could also call these things treasure. One of those was the community. A bunch of people threw in their skills and support to open this restaurant. Friends, incredibly talented people who some of them just helped during COVID, some of them work with me now, all banded together. And then another part of that community are the farmers, a lot of whom I met at that harvest dinner following my grandma's death. Those are still people that we work with today to make what we do at Burial. Another way that we kind of incorporate that value into how we do things is how we cook. We love taking stuff that people think is just simple or normal, like carrots, and they're greens, which you can eat and are delicious, or radishes, or just a really, really good chicken. Things like that we love to celebrate. And the way that we do things is also a little bit scrappy, but combines our skill sets. So I have a lot of people who have unique skills on staff that we incorporate into what we do. I even use some of my old interests. I was always interested in film, make funny little, goofy little silent films sometimes, and use that to communicate restaurant concepts and do little watercolors. Our marketing budget is this, so gotta get creative. So something, I feel like I really hit a sweet spot where I'm able to use a lot of my old interests that I thought were just extra things. And there are seasons where that can happen a lot, and then other seasons where we just have to be really focused and specialized. And I'm learning that you just kind of have to be okay with whichever one you're in. And right now, I get to be a Renaissance one, and I'm not mad about it. So this, you can't really see it there. Let's see here. This kind of brings me to where I am right now. One thing about this whole process, finding the treasure that's in our lives, the things that set us apart, it never really stops. And in some ways, I feel like a lot of those pieces of the story that I just told you kind of came to full fruition in the restaurant and Muriel. And now, again, I'm in a place of redefinition. So that picture is me on a beach. And the words there says, I'll tell you why that picture's there in a second. The words say, everything has or can have a purpose. We don't usually know how this will add up, we just have to trust it will. So once again, I'm remembering that, now I'm about to start kind of some new projects or new things where I have to kind of reestablish myself and learn all over again. I have to remember that all the challenges that I'm facing, the things that are difficult right now, any lack of clarity, it's there, it will have a purpose, it will serve a purpose eventually. There will be a thread that will be running through all of it, so I don't need to freak out. Right now I'm working on a project basically where I'm communicating some of the philosophies that we've developed around food and hospitality at the restaurant, but I'm bringing it, I'm trying to bring it using to a broader audience using a different medium, in this case, film. And that's one of the stills from a little shoot that we did. So here's another still from that, me holding a chicken with one of my farmer friends. And the words say, an evolution of treasure. So that's the thing, we can never stay in one spot. We can never, it's like that guy in high school who kind of peaks and keeps talking about his old football games. Sorry if anyone's that guy. Like my grandma's pie, for example, it will always be so special to me, but it may not be the golden ticket in my professional career the same way that it was for the first 5 years. And now I have to keep evaluating the new things that have been happening, the new challenges, the new resources that I have. How is that meaningful? How is that shaping who I am? And how is that kind of chilling my voice in a different way now as a creative? Yeah, that's really, that's kind of where I'm at right now. This process is ongoing, I think, and I'm not that old, but I've already seen this cycle happen a couple times, and I anticipate it will happen again. But the cool thing about seeing it is, once we recognize that that's the way things work, that even challenges, that kind of quirky things that we overlook about our lives, like my middle and Midwestern background, all of those things can be some of our best assets and can lead us in the right direction. It makes us a lot more confident going ahead into the future. And we don't need to be afraid, we don't need to be self-conscious, and we can be confident that we'll keep finding new treasure.